Hello and welcome to a Monkey Logic design tutorial. I'm Michael, and today I'm going to show you how to use the plugin CpExtra to create rollover effects for Smart Shape buttons on the main master slide in Adobe Captivate 9. Previous versions of Captivate had the ability to create rollover effects for Smart Shape buttons on master slides, but with the release of Captivate 9 we unfortunately lost that ability, which is the reason for this video. This tutorial uses the CpExtra plugin from InfoSemantics, which you can check out from their website at infosemantics.com.au. I'm using headerless loading for the CpExtra plugin, so it automatically gets added when I preview or publish the project in HTML5. This is a new project I have open. I'm going to the master slide palette, and we'll add a smart shape to this main master slide by selecting Shapes, Rounded Rectangle, and then drag it out on the slide. You can see the smart shape in the timeline, but Captivate doesn't show default names for objects placed on any master slides. Nor does Captivate allow us to add a name to it in the Properties palette. Because Captivate doesn't allow us to see or apply names to objects on master slides, we can't use any of Captivate's built-in features to do anything to them as you would be able to if they were placed on a slide in the film strip view. However, while Captivate doesn't show a name for the smart shape, everything in Captivate does receive a unique HTML ID when you preview or publish the project in HTML5. We'll be able to discover these unique IDs using a browser's developer tools. For now, I'm going to double-click inside the shape so I can type the text hover, assign a style I already set up named hover button, press Ctrl-D to duplicate the shape, move it down below the original, double-click the duplicated shape and highlight the text so I can change the text to waiting, and apply another style I set up called waiting button. Before I continue, I also need to point out that these smart shapes are on the main master slide, which is the larger top slide in the master slide palette. These smart shapes have to be on the main master slide, and I'll explain why when we preview the project. Going back to the film strip view, I'll add an oval smart shape to the project. And in the Properties palette, I'll name it Oval Target. So let's preview the project in HTML5 by selecting Preview, HTML5 in Browser. The project appears and we see the two smart shapes from the main master slide and the oval from the first slide. Pressing F12 on my keyboard brings up the browser's developer tools, which allows us to examine the page's HTML. To see the code for an object, you click on the Inspect tool, then click on any object. And for this, I'm going to select the oval first. And in the code view, we're taken directly to the HTML for the oval. The code shows that the ID of the object in parentheses is oval target, because oval target is the name we assign to the smart shape in Captivate. So the name given to objects in Captivate will be the unique ID name of the object when the project is previewed or published to HTML5. This is going to let us see what unique IDs Captivate assigned to the two smart shapes from the main master slide. Keep in mind that the object IDs I'm about to show you for the hover and waiting smart shapes are only applicable in this project. If I started another project and followed these exact same steps, the IDs would be different. Clicking on the Inspect tool again, and then the waiting smart shape, we can see that the ID is SI5349. Repeating the same steps for the hover smart shape, we find that its ID is SI5317. So anytime I preview or publish this specific Captivate project to HTML5, each of these two smart shapes will use these ID names. However, this is only true if they're on the main master slide. To demonstrate why, let's take a look at another Captivate file. Going to the master slide palette, I'm on the main master slide currently, and it has a single circle containing the text main master slide. The secondary master slide, which has the name title, has a rounded rectangle containing the text secondary master slide. And I'm going to enable the option to show main master slide objects on this slide. In the film strip view are two slides that are both set to use the title master slide. Let's take a look at the code they generate by previewing them in HTML5. Pressing F12 brings up the developer tools, select the inspection tool, then the circle, and we find the ID of the circle is SI5575, and the ID of the rounded rectangle is SI5551. Going to the next slide, inspect the circle, and we find that its ID is SI5575, which is the exact same ID it had on the first slide. Inspecting the rounded rectangle, we find that its ID is SI5560, which is not the same as it was on the first slide. So remember that for this to work, the smart shapes have to be placed on the main master slide. If you put them on a secondary master slide, then each time that secondary master slide is used throughout your project, the shapes will have a different ID. Since we know the HTML ID for the waiting smart shape is SI5349, and the ID for the hover smart shape is SI5317, we can go back into Captivate and use CpExtra to target them. I don't need the oval anymore, so I can delete it, and go to the master slide. To make it easy to position the waiting smart shape in the exact same place as the hover smart shape, I'll first select the hover smart shape, press and hold Shift, and click on the weighting smart shape. Any alignment options I now select will use the hover smart shape as the target object. Pressing the align and resize to the same size option in the alignment palette moves the weighting smart shape to the same position as the target hover smart shape. If you don't have the alignment palette visible, you can enable it under Window and select Align. Because we're replicating a rollover effect for these smart shapes, the weighting smart shape is going to be the default state of the button when it's not being interacted with, and the hover smart shape is going to be the hover state for the button. You can save time when you need to make identical changes to multiple objects on a slide by selecting all the objects first, then making the change. Since I already have both of these smart shapes selected, I can make them both a button and assign the same action to them at the same time. Press the Use This Button option in the Properties palette, go to the Actions tab, and for this example we're just going to have them toggle the project's muting. So set the onSuccess to toggle, and set the variable to CpCommand_mute, which is a built-in Captivate variable that mutes or unmutes the project. I'll also uncheck the Continue Playing the Project option because I don't want the Smart Shape button to unpause the project. We need to set up 3 CpExtra variables which will allow us to target the HTML5 IDs of the Smart Shapes. So we'll go back to the film strip view, select Project, Variables, Add New, and for the name we'll type xcommand_hide, which CpExtra will use to hide the weighting Smart Shape. Save, Add New, type xcommand_show, which CpExtra will use to show the weighting smart shape, save, add new, and type xcommand_add_event_listener, which CpExtra will use to continually monitor the project for when the mouse moves over and off of the hover and weighting smart shapes. Press save again, and close the window. Now we'll set up 2 transparent buttons that the add_event_listener variable will be targeting. Select Interactions, Button. In the Properties palette, change the caption to Hide, which is just to help us keep visual track of what this button does in the project. Change the button style to Transparent Button Style. Set the fill opacity to 0%, the stroke width to 0, and change the name to Hide Master. Since I'm using a capital H and capital M in the name of this button, I'll have to enter it the exact same way in the advanced action we'll create soon. I don't want the button to actually be visible to the user, so I'm moving it to the right side of the slide. If I placed it in this area outside the slide, it does stay in the working project file, but Captivate won't include it when I preview or publish the project, so I need to place it so part of the button is actually on the slide while keeping the text off the slide. Now go to the Actions tab, change the onSuccess to Assign, and set the Assign to xcommand_hide. Using the browser's developer tools, we found that the weighting Smart Shapes ID is SI5349, so in the Width field, we'll enter that ID. Uncheck Continue Playing the Project. Duplicate the button by pressing Ctrl-D. Move it down a little so it's also slightly over the slide. Change the name to Show Master. Change the Assign command to xcommand_show. Go to the Style tab. Change the caption to Show. Select both buttons, and in the Timing palette, unselect Pause After. Now we'll create an advanced action listener that will set to launch when slide 1 appears. Go to Project, Advanced Actions. I'm going to set the name as Show Hide Master Object. Double-click in the first action slot. Type A on my keyboard to shortcut to Assign. Type Add on my keyboard to shortcut to xcommand_add_event_listener. And select Literal from the drop-down menu. CpExtra uses xcommand_add_event_listener to monitor a project for when specific things occur, and then allows us to execute the onSuccess action of a button. First we specify what object to listen for, which is the weighting Smart Shape ID SI5349, add a comma and a space, then specify what event it's listening for, which we want to be when the mouse is over the button, so type mouse over, add a comma and a space, then specify a button to target, which is Hide Master, and remember that this is case sensitive, add a comma and a space, and finally specifying that we want to execute the button's success action, so type success and press enter. Now we need to set up another step which will show the weighting Smart Shape again. Because this first step of the action hides the weighting Smart Shape, we can't interact with it anymore. So we have to target the hover Smart Shape in order to make the weighting Smart Shape reappear. Double-click in the next line, type A to shortcut to Assign, type Add to shortcut to add_event_listener, select Literal. The object we're listening for this time is the hover Smart Shape ID, which is SI5317, add a comma and a space. Specify the event it's listening for, which is when the mouse moves off of the hover Smart Shape, so type mouse out, add a comma and a space. Specify a button to target, which is Show Master, again case sensitive, add a comma and a space. And finally specifying that we want the listener to execute the button success action, so type success. Select Save as Action. Close the Advanced Action panel. Clicking on the slide allows us to get to the slide's properties. Go to the Action tab, set the On Enter to execute advanced actions, and the script we just created is already selected because it's the only script in the project. Here's an illustration of what's going to occur. The project launches and slide 1 executes the Show Hide Master Object advanced action, loads the Hide Master and Show Master buttons, and displays the smart shapes we set up on the master slide with the waiting smart shape above the hover smart shape. When the mouse moves over the waiting smart shape, the first line of the listener action detects that the mouse is over the waiting smart shape, so it executes the Hide Master button success action, which hides the waiting smart shape. When the mouse moves off of the hover smart shape, the second line of the listener action detects that the mouse has moved off the hover smart shape, so it executes the Show Master button success action, which shows the waiting smart shape again. Let's preview the project in HTML5 to see this in action. I'll mouse over the waiting smart shape, the listener hides it, and we see the hover smart shape. Moving the mouse off of the hover smart shape shows the waiting smart shape again. Clicking on the smart shape button is going to mute and unmute the project, which you'll be able to observe by the mute button down in the play bar. Clicking the smart shape mutes the project. Clicking it again unmutes the project. So this should work great for the majority of your uses. However, I'm going to demonstrate a potential problem that can occur and then show you how to make a few tweaks to work around it. In the project, I'll go to the master slide. Both smart shapes are still selected, and I'm going to change their on success action from toggle to go to the next slide. Returning to the film strip, notice that this slide is using the master slide named title, which is set to show the main master slide objects. I'll add a new blank slide by right-clicking on slide 1, select Slides, New Slide From, Blank. This is set to use the master slide named blank, which doesn't have the smart shapes on it. Now I'll add a next button to the slide by selecting Interactions, Button. Change the caption to Next, as its default action is go to the next slide. I'm going to add another slide by right-clicking on slide 2, select Slides, New Slide From, and Title, which has the smart shape buttons. Now we can preview the project again in HTML5. I can hover over and mouse off the smart shape so everything still works correctly. Because we changed the success action of the smart shapes, clicking takes us to slide 2, clicking the next button takes us to slide 3, and now you can see that the waiting smart shape didn't become visible again. The reason is that by clicking on the hover smart shape, which takes us directly to the next page, the mouse never rolled off of the hover smart shape, which is the only method we've specified for the waiting smart shape to be shown again. I can demonstrate that the advanced action listener we created is still functioning properly by hovering over the hover smart shape, and when I mouse off of it, the waiting smart shape reappears. Fortunately, we can fix this issue by making some tweaks. I'm going to set up a new advanced action by going to Project, Advanced Actions, name my new action Next and Show, set the first step to go to the next slide, double-click in the next slot, type A to shortcut to Assign, type Show to shortcut to X-Command Show, select Literal, enter the ID for the waiting smart shape, which is SI5349, and select Save as Action. We'll assign this new action as a success action of the button on slide 2, so when it's pressed, the action will move to the next slide, then show the waiting smart shape again. In this project, the two slides that are showing the main master slide smart shapes only have one slide placed between them that isn't showing the smart shapes. If I had multiple slides that didn't show the smart shapes instead of just this one, I would only need to set one of my next buttons to use this new advanced action. The important thing is simply to use the advanced action at least one time before moving back to a slide that has the smart shapes on it. I'll select the button, go to the Actions tab, change the On Success to Execute Advanced Actions, and the script is set to Next and Show because when you first select Execute Advanced Actions, Captivate will automatically select the first script listed alphabetically if you have more than one script in your project. Now we can preview the project again. You can see that the listener is functioning properly when I mouse over and off the smart shape. Clicking the smart shape takes us to the next slide. Clicking the button advances to slide 3, and the waiting smart shape is visible again. And that is how to use CpExtra to create rollover effects for smart shape buttons on the main master slide in Adobe Captivate 9. Before I sign off, I want to mention that when you're implementing this solution in your projects, that it's possible you could still run into similar types of issues that the last part of this video addressed. If you should happen to run into a new issue that you can't quite figure out how to resolve on your own, please feel free to use the Monkey Logic Design contact page to inquire of our consulting services. We would be happy to figure out a solution to the issue to help you create the best trainings ever. I'm Michael, and until next time, keep looking for ways to take your creativity further.